This yes, here?
Yes.
Oh,
this?
yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. Let me just hold on. This is not a bungee.
Oh.
This is a teddy bear.
I definitely saw a thong happening, but.
Were you just looking at this section over here?
Yeah.
This season of Good is sponsored by MusicBed. MusicBed represents over 700 indie artists and composers with record label quality music for you to license.
Also, check out musicbed.com for more information on their subscription service, giving you unlimited access for all your projects. As a Good listener, you can get 1 month free off any subscription type. Just head to musicbed.com/good and use coupon code GOOD at checkout.
This season of Good is also sponsored by Film Supply. Licensed stock footage from world-class filmmakers.
Plus, if you're short on time, they have free footage research available to help you find exactly what you need. Learn more at filmsupply.com.
From a distance in
I
low
dare
resolution.
you.
I'm so
Dare
sorry.
you.
Oh my God.
Eroticized this innocent teddy.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead and end this. It's been nice talking to you, Jay.
We're off to a good start.
Yeah.
Jay, where are you right now? Where are you based at?
I am in Vancouver, which is not where I'm based, but it's where I am. This is not my house. It's my office. I'm at work.
Nice.
Because we are, it's, what time is it here? It's 6 o'clock and shooting a movie. So I'm here prepping.
Oh, that's amazing.
When do you guys start?
What's that? When do we start?
When do you guys...
We start in March.
Wait, so is this Peter Pan and Wendy? Is that what you're working on?
This is Peter Pan and Wendy. I wish I had some kind of my computer's on my Peter Pan and Wendy book, but yes, it's Peter Pan and Wendy.
How exactly does the thonged man make his way into Peter Pan and Wendy?
This is just a reference, but this is one of Wendy's brothers. He has a teddy bear, his teddy, and this is just a reference of a very old teddy bear, but it's not the teddy bear, so I think it's okay for me to show it. It's just a random teddy bear. It's just a teddy bear.
What can you tell us about the movie without giving, obviously, anything?
It is. What can I tell you? It's going to be great.
Who's directing? Who's the collaborators?
David Lowery, who I work with a lot, as I'm sure you know. And the same Toby Hallbrooks is the other writer who is also part of the family, the creative family, and it's the same producers who did Pete's Dragon. So We're all just kind of getting back together to make this other Disney movie, and we were on before the pandemic. The pandemic shut us down, so it's been really nice to get everyone back together. Not everybody, because some people didn't manage to come back, but there was that moment of feeling like we've been on this movie. We've been making this movie for years. I can't tell you how long I've been attached to Peter Pan, and it was finally happening. Sets were getting built, and then the pandemic came along, and it was heartbreaking to walk away from feeling like we were about to just make something that meant so much to all of us. And then it feels really like a blessing. Just honestly, there's no other better word, to be back. To be back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For someone like you, Jade, who's it seems like a lot of your work is obviously happening on set in some ways, but maybe the majority of it happens kind of prior. Did like the extra time, is that frustrating, or did it give you more time to wrap your head around things?
It's actually it's of course frustrating, because in some ways you're moving towards a target at a certain speed once you're getting close to shooting, so you're prepping, and then it's really frustrating in the sense that your brain can only contain so much information for so long, and when you take a hiatus of like 7 months, you come back and people are like, how about this? I'm like, I don't even remember. What is that? Or they're like, do we have a design for this? And I'm like, I think we did, or did we just, even David and I are both looking at stuff like, did we decide on this, or what was the reason? I don't remember. So it's frustrating in that sense that you spend so much time, because it's like a muscle. You have to train to retain all this information, and you're like training yourself to be like, this set needs this. I need this here. This has to be here. These are all the reasons. And then it lays dormant for 7 months, and then you come back, and the movie and the visuals are still in my head. And we've got all concept art and designs, but there's the little details you have to kind of go back and remember, but it has gotten better. The script got better. It was already great, but it got even better. And we had more time. We were very rushed the first time around. We didn't have a lot of time. They had a release date that was quite tight, and we were having to move very quickly to design and get stuff going, which was frustrating. And this time around, we had a lot of time to rethink things. And so we came back and we had time to make it better. So now, there's all this time to sort of revisit, the iconic sets, and some of it most of the stuff we didn't touch and we didn't change from when we left before the hiatus, but there were some big things that we had time to sort of think about and make better, and it's exciting. It's funny, like I came back and I was like, what was I thinking with this wallpaper? I hate it. I hate all of it.
Jade, obviously working with David, you get to work with a lot of different kind of budgets and stuff. I would love to hear your take on the difference between a ghost story and working on something on a bigger budget, maybe like The Green Knight or this movie you're doing right now. Maybe talk a little bit about how you approach it differently on a smaller scale versus the bigger scale stuff.
In some ways, the approach is always the same, where you start with the story and the characters and you go from there, always trying to stay honest and to the story, always just, that's sort of where I always start, no matter what the size is. I guess the difference is there's different stresses, you don't have enough money. So you're like, how am I going to do this? There's no money. And when you have all the money, there's always still budget constraints, but you're still like, how am I going to do this? I don't want to mess it up. I have all the money. I have no excuse. It's a different value of stress. It's like, oh my God, I have zero reason to get this wrong. So except it's like my fault. I don't have I can't rely on being like, it's low budget. What are people, it's a guy in a sheet. What are people going to expect? It's a house. It's just a different level, but it's always, the amazing thing about working with David is that it's always feels the same when you're on set and you're working. It's just like the vibe is the same, whether there's 100 people on set or there's like 4. There's a sense of intimacy and family, and that never changes. I think some people are always afraid once you move up to bigger movies that you lose that. And I can say that I've never felt more close. Like when we were in New Zealand on Pete's Dragon, it was a huge movie. And it was like we were all crying with all the crew and we had to leave. We were so sad. I mean, it's so close. So you're with people for so much longer. So you actually get more of that intimacy. But it's
it's just that he's doing practically that is shaping that sort of culture a little bit.
David is just he's one of a kind. He's so open to everyone of being a collaborative experience, but he is also very much driving the vision. Because he's the writer and his scripts are so detailed and colorful, it's like it all starts there. But he just creates a space for people to want to have ideas and to feel like it's an experience that we're all putting something into it. He doesn't create. There's no ego there of like, I'm the director, I'm the boss, this is my show. It's very much like he's very humble is the word. He's so humbled. It's just kind of like, thank you for being here is always the feeling you get from David. Like he's just like so grateful that everyone's there, and you get a sense of someone who's constantly just like feels so lucky that he gets to be making movies. And I think the way he works as a leader and as a collaborator just makes you want to do your all. So what I find is that everybody from the camera assistant to the PAs all want to do their best because David's such a great, nice guy. They want to make sure, so it's kind of just that. It's just creating an energy of coming to work and having fun. It's always like there's always room to laugh. There's always room to make jokes, to have a sense of humor. But it's also there's a sense of wanting to make something that's beautiful and artful. So you kind of get that nice balance where it's like we're making a movie. Let's not be so serious because it's not, but also like let's make something really good. So it's like that's always a hard balance. Like it doesn't have to be. It's like making movies is so hard and you already have to put so much of yourself into it. So how do we find a way to enjoy this process? It's already so painful to like, I think David understands that, it's painful for him to be as a director and an artist to give and to feel that stress that you might not be what you're doing is who's going to like it. Is it going to be good? But he understands that everybody feels that way. So he's like very delicate, it's not like, he doesn't yell. There's no yelling.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much from him of I used to be a monster. No, I used to yell at everybody. No. Yeah, you see it. You can see it. No, but I've learned so much from him. So it's been a great journey. We've worked together for so long and known each other for so long. So it's nice.
Okay. I definitely want to dig into all of that. But let's take a trip down memory lane to younger, naive Jade. Tell us kind of how you got started and what kind of drew you into doing this in the first
We're
place.
going to take it back all the way to Ty West. So the Ty West days.
Hell yeah.
Yes. Who I'm just, I was just texting with because he's in New Zealand making a movie now with all my other film family. And this is the first time I don't get to work with him on a movie. So it's sad.
Dang. Yeah.
But I started in film when let's see, I guess first I went into photography because that's what I thought I wanted to do. And then I fell in love with film because I took a class and I was like, what, this is amazing. So
is this like high school or?
This is called, I knew I wanted to do photography in high school. And then I went I'm from Montreal. So we have something called CJEP, which is 2 years of college after high school. And then you go to college for 3 years. So it's a little different. It means you can kind of pick and choose. I went into creative arts. I knew I wanted to do arts. So was like, fuck 9 to 5 and I'm doing that. And can I swear on this podcast?
Oh yeah.
Just checking. I was like, fuck that shit. And I was like, and then I decided I wanted to do film because I took a film class and I don't remember what movie it was, I just remember one movie I remember watching in my first film class was like Baraka. And I was just like, I was just so like, what? And I actually was more in love with documentary filmmaking at the beginning of my career. I just really was like, I want to do this. And so I transferred into film. I went into film and then I was working on we were doing the Bolex and the Steenbeck and we're doing all that shit. And I got an internship in LA. I wanted to kind of go to see what that would be like to just so I worked for free for Muse, who's the prolific producer, Chris Hanley, who was really big in the 90s. He was doing, they did Virgin Suicides, Buffalo 66, American Psycho.
And can I ask you a question, Jade?
Yeah.
You don't have, how old are you?
I'm 39.
Okay. I'm just curious. Because like even shooting like Bolex and like the flatbed cutters and stuff, I was curious.
Yeah.
Kind of where you were.
No, anyway, I mean, people either think I'm younger or they usually are like, you can't believe you're turning 39 or they can't believe that I'm only 39. It's like one or the other. It's like my construction coordinator said that to me the other day. You're only 39. I was like, am I supposed to be older? Because it's more do I look older? But it's more the sense I'm in charge of all these people. So
well, I would think you were younger, and then I look at your IMDb and
then that's it. Yeah. Then it seems like I'm old.
All right.
Yes.
Keep going. I interrupted you.
Yeah. When I wanted to do an internship to sort of see what the real film, what it was like. So I worked for the Hanleys, and then I quickly kind of just became the office manager because they didn't really have anybody in that. But they had like I love the Hanleys, but anyone who knows them, so unorganized, like complete disaster.
Yeah.
And then because there was room for that, I'm like pretty personable. I am not afraid of difficult people. And they're like a total bunch of weirdos. And I just kind of got in there and I became like an associate producer on Asia's movie, The Heart is Deceitful. And then I did another one called Edmund, which was a David Mamet one for them. And then I hated what I was doing. I really didn't like production, like despised it. Yeah. So then I produced a movie called Lying for M. Blash. I started as
I've seen this movie.
Oh, you have it? That was the beginning of my career, really. It started there because I was the production manager on that, and then I kind of just did everything, and I became like I had a producer credit by the end of it. And it was such a small movie. So the other movies were a little bit bigger, and I wasn't on set all the time. I didn't have the same kind of interaction, but I was really there for all of it, from the scouting to everything. So I got to really see what everybody was doing. And I got to know the production designer, Tim Grimes, and I was just like, what you guys do looks really cool. Like, that looks really fun.
Cast too. That's such a crazy.
It was really fun. It was fun. And I went on to design a movie for M, a commercial with M like a couple years ago, and it was so fun because we hadn't seen each other for so long. It was great.
That's amazing.
But I was just like, what do you guys do? And he said, yeah, you should do art department. He was just starting as a production designer. He was a props, so he was still like really in the green of that world. And then he said I could come work on a movie with him in LA as like, just doing everything. And we were like a 2-person department. So it was like, I was like the set deck prop master. And I just learned. That's the great thing about indie film and art department is you just read the script and you go, all right, so I read it. I got to do this. You need this. I can figure this out. It's like easy to figure out when it's a small scale, when you're just like, doesn't involve builds and a bunch of stuff. You're like, I'm going to paint this wall. I'm going to bring some props. So I learned the nitty gritty way. And then I did another movie. And then this is what I'm like remembering what happened next. So then he got Cabin Fever 2 as a job, which was like his biggest movie as a production designer. And then I was the set decorator. And that is how I met Ty West. Okay. I was decorating Cabin Fever 2, and that's really where my career starts. Cabin Fever 2. And I get there, and there's Ty, and Ty's the same exact age as I am. And he was just like, it was the first time he was doing like a union kind of budget movie. And he's just sort of standing there in the office like, what's up? And I was like, what's up? Just like, and we just got along really well. And we worked closely together on that film. And he loved Tim, but Tim was off doing like The Wrestler when Ty had his next project. So he asked me if I wanted to design House of the Devil. And that's it. That's how it started. Okay. And I was like,
Tell me about the leap, because that seems like a pretty significant leap.
Well, at that point, I had been decorating for quite a bit on different movies. And when you're sort of decorating on low budget movies, it's like if there's no builds and you're really just going and painting wallpaper and decorating, that's kind of like on a big, huge movie. It's basically your job as a decorator. That's your job. It's what you do. So it's like, wallpaper even falls under the decorating on like big budget movies. So it wasn't that big of a leap because I knew the language and I knew Ty, and it felt like it was what I was already doing. Because I'm somebody, those who know me well would say, hard time staying in my lane. So I'm always like overstepping the lines of like who does what. So I was always so involved as a decorator that it felt natural for me. Like I was frustrated as a decorator because when I was decorating for Tim, I had access to the directors and I knew really what everybody wanted. So I already felt like, okay, this feels normal. And the leap, it didn't feel huge. It was stressful because it was on me. I was already like doing lookbooks, I was always like helping Tim with his lookbook. So I already knew that part of it. So it kind of just happened. It's such a long time ago. I can barely remember. It's funny because, I did 4 movies with Ty, and his designer for this movie emailed me and was like, or called me wanting some advice and asking for my blessing to do it. And he was like, what is Ty like? And what do you want? Like, what's his thing for how he likes to be presented stuff? And I was like, dude, I did those so long ago. I didn't do anything back then. I was just like, here's your set. I was like such a different designer that it's like anything you do will be great, because it was like, it's not like we were drafting plans and doing we weren't doing any of that stuff. It was like run and gun, like we had no money and it's like, here's some wallpaper. What do you think of this? And then like show up in the day. But Ty and I were very in sync. So he was always, by the time we were doing our second movie, he trusted me after House of the Devil that he would just be like, whatever you think, and it just flowed. Like there was never really any issues.
I'm curious, like, it seems like you and Ty West kind of like had this thing like where you worked together on several films, and same thing with David. Does it get easier and easier? What is that communication? How does it change the more experience you have with a director and a team?
It gets easier. It's different ways to look at it. I think on a big movie like this, it's what I always hear from my team is that it's so nice that the director and I are on the same page, because there's so much experience when the designer and the director aren't. And there's constant like the props and set deck are always like, I don't know, she likes this, he likes that, or she likes this, she likes this, and they're trying to figure it out. But Dave, I always, no matter what, sometimes I like to test myself, and I never want to just speak for David. So I'll be always like, when I look at props or set deck or drawings that, people bring to me, I'm like, they're like, it's great. I'm like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure David. And then I'll be like, let's just see what David says. And 99% of the time, David always picks the exact same thing I pick. So we're pretty much aligned in that way. But sometimes what I worry about, I'm always like, I worry sometimes like, oh, am I limiting David because I'm just thinking exactly, because our brains are so melded, I think the same way. Am I limiting him in the sense that I'm not bringing something out of his mind, like scope of what he might imagine. So I worry about that. Like I lose sleep. I'm like, well, if there's someone else who wasn't so in sync in the way that David thinks, maybe they would offer him something so different, you know? So sometimes that's the thing that keeps me up. But I'm always.
It's so weird because all of his films are so different. You know what I mean? The fact that you can, you know, every single story being so different, you guys are still on the same page within that world.
I think we just have the same, we think about storytelling in the same way. So when I read David's script for the first time, I always just start sending him images kind of like this. And that's how we start. It's just sort of this back and forth. And it's always immediately like, yeah, like that. But then but what I'm finding is that as we both grow as filmmakers, David is pushing, and he's pushing sort of the way he thinks of the world, which is pushing me to think also like expand, you know, and think sometimes, you know, after the pandemic or right before we came back, he sort of threw something at me. Like I was thinking this, and I'm not going to say it, obviously, I'm going to give it away. And I was like, what? I was like, whoa, that's different. But, you know, we started working that direction, and it's like it's totally cool. It's like not what I would have thought of originally. So it's nice to sort of have that, you know, that space and to kind of see him moving in other directions. And I'm trying, and we're both trying to push each other. Like, you know, I try to push him out of his comfort zone sometimes in other directions. Like David tends to like really muted wallpapers and nothing too loud. But I'm like, when you're in a Disney movie with kids, I'll be like, let's try a little, like, what about? And it's like, always a delicate process to get there. And, but I think we always do, you know, but you know, there's always learning. Even on the Green Knight, I look back, and the thing that always happens, we never have enough time, even on a movie like this, but we didn't have that movie. There was not enough time for prep at all. And there's things you always go back and go, oh, I wish. And it's like Dave and I always have the same feelings of like, God, I wish we had done that, or I wish we had, you know, fought for something other. But you learn as you go and figure it out. For the next one, now David doesn't compromise. Like he used to be more like, we'll make it work. And now he's like, and why should he on a movie of this size? Like just ask for everything that you want. Like,
just curious, going from someone like, I don't know David, of course, but I would imagine that Yorgos Lanthimos.
I knew that was where you were going.
I would imagine that's, you know, two different experiences. Yeah, I mean, you know, working with someone where you kind of have like a shorthand, like kind of, I'm curious what it would be like to kind of enter into the Yorgos universe.
I think Yorgos just stands alone as so different than honestly anyone I work with. But the common denominator is Yorgos has such a great sense of humor. As like, I think I was mostly just so nervous. Like I don't get stressed or nervous when I'm working with like, you know, tired David, but I was so nervous.
Like, you get the email or whatever. I
mean, first of all, I remember meeting with Yorgos and I was like, I don't have that job. There's just no way. Because it's like so odd. There's like on the phone, our FaceTime, it's like awkward, you know, like we had a FaceTime, and Yorgos is like really funny when you get to know him, but he does have that sort of, as you can imagine, stilted, awkward kind of, and I was like, that went terrible. I told my agent, I was like, that didn't go well. And then she's like, you got the job. And I was like, what? But I wasn't planning on working then. So I actually had to have this moment of like, I was like, I had just done like, I was doing Ghost Story. I had to leave to do that. And I really was trying to take some time off. I'd been working nonstop. But of course, you know, you don't say no to Yorgos. So I was like, that would be crazy. I think I went on a hike. I might have taken some kind of mushrooms or chocolate or something. And I was like, as I was walking down, I was like, I have to do that movie. Which of course, and I learned so much. But working with Yorgos, he's such a different filmmaker. He doesn't approach things in the same way of story and character. You know, as I was saying before, that's not what Yorgos is after. It's not after like, who are these characters? Where do they come from? Yeah. He's after a feeling. He wants to create sort of discomfort and you know, he's not trying to create like a world of layers that you can understand. He wants to actually keep you kind of everything on the surface and distance. So it's such a different, and I had never worked in that way. So it was like forgetting everything I knew. And I've told this story so many times, but you know, one of the first things we're scouting, and I was like, you know, I think Nicole's house, like her character, she would be someone who would get an interior designer. And he like looked at me and he said, don't even get started with that stuff, Jade. And I was like, noted. And that was like the last time we talked about character.
Wow.
He's like, don't even get started with backstory. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Well, how did that affect your process and like decision making?
Honestly, it didn't, because like, again, when I read that script and knowing Yorgos's work and just reading the script, like I could see it very quickly. I think I got the job because I sent in a lookbook that, understood sort of that feeling. And it was just more about wanting to create that feeling. So constantly looking for, trying to find the colors and the right, it was always feeling something that felt off and alienating. So you're just trying to create these spaces and these feelings. So once you just get rid of that, and the characters they're not meant to be fully developed. You're not really meant to understand. And once you just kind of detach yourself from that and try to detach yourself, really, I remember once the AD asking Yorgos, and this is, he went on to do The Favorite with Yorgos, and I think they're really tight collaborators, but he asked him once about that scene in the scene with I can't remember their names anymore, the Colin and the kid in the wheelchair, when he's telling him the story about his father, and he's like, you know the story, you know what I'm talking about? And Attila was like, what is that? Like, can you explain like why? And Yorgos was like, I don't like what he was like, what is that about? It's like Yorgos was like, I don't know. Why do you think I know this? Like, why? She's like, we're going to figure it out. And they would always use this metaphor. You're like, we build the monster, then we follow it and we see where it goes. And that's kind of the process of working with Yorgos. And it's really exciting. It's like, you don't always know exactly where it's going to go. And the actors show up and then you start to see it. Like, I mean, the kid, I just worked with him again. I'm so bad with names.
Oh shit.
He's so good that you couldn't imagine from reading the script on paper and then you see him and you're just like, this kid has it. And then he's in The Green Knight, and David was also just in love with him. He's so talented that he just takes it off the page and you're just like, whoa. So it was Yorgos is so funny. He's such a good sense of humor. And by the end of it was great. And there was never any I never had any traumatic issues. I was never like crying in the car, but it was just mostly just stress because I wanted, I really respect him as a filmmaker, and I just wanted it to be right because his films, you don't want to be in the canon of Yorgos's films and people going, well, that one didn't look good. like God,
When you work with someone like Yorgos or someone that maybe works or thinks differently than maybe other directors you've worked with, do you feel yourself needing to kind of like inhabit like their brain? Or for example, Yorgos kind of being like, don't even talk about backstory. Do you as an artist like go there still, and does that inform your decisions?
No,
or do you try to
actually, I think on that one we were really just trying to get the world to feel like that strangeness. So we just kind of, it's kind of like my brain is so used to working that way that it was almost like a slip. Like but then when I think back on it, I was like, why would I? Of course, duh.
So you kind of assume like the filmmaker's viewpoint in the decisions.
I think you have to. And I always find it interesting when I hear about, designers and directors like butting heads or not being able to because it is your job to bring their vision to life. I mean, you're there to bring the film to life, and you should fight the battles. Like even with David, even today I was trying to win a battle over something. But once the director says, like, if David's like, I really like this, I want this, then you're like, I want it too. I want it so bad. I love it. I'm like so in love with this. What was I thinking? You have to convince yourself. There's never a moment that, they decide on something, the DP and the director, and I didn't like it. I don't sit around sulking. You move on from it, and you move on. You find a way to make it as great. Cause I always just remind myself they're seeing something, or the director or the DP seeing something I don't right now, because they have all the shots in their head. But I trust my collaborators, and I just you dive in and you just make sure. So to me, it's always about inhabiting the director's brain and figuring out what they want and giving they're all so different, the directors I've worked with. So, but it's always just making sure that you're faithfully bringing their vision to life and that you're doing justice to the story. Because there are times, if I'll sit with something for a long time that I'm like, I don't like this, I just prepare a little presentation and then I bring it to the director and the DP and I'm like, this is why. And sometimes I win, sometimes I don't. And it's not a win, sometimes everyone's like, you know what? You're right. That makes sense. Because for me, I'm looking at really the whole world all the time. And the director will often, they have so much to do with like casting this. They'll like see one location and be in love with it when they walk in, but I'm standing back and seeing how it fits in really constantly. I'm going, it's like my brain is like puzzling it together, and I have my wall, you know, I'm like, and if something pops out and I'm like, it's really jumping, I really don't like it. That's when I say something, I speak my piece, and then, you know, but you always have to come with good reason. It can't just be like, I don't like it. It's like, what's your reason why you don't like it?
This season of Good is sponsored by MusicBed. We had the chance to sit down with their CEO, Daniel McCarthy, to talk about why MusicBed exists and how they're helping creatives further their craft.
We felt like there was all these indie filmmakers and a ton of indie musicians, and they needed each other. Like we all know, like the best films are a marriage between the moving picture and music. I view it as an ongoing ecosystem that continues to, you know, increase the value of art, that continues to allow artists to support other artists.
Thanks again to MusicBed for sponsoring this season of Good. As a Good listener, you can get 1 month subscription free if you go to musicbed.com/good. This season of Good is also sponsored by Film Supply. Here's their CEO, Daniel McCarthy, again on what makes Film Supply the best stock footage resource for films.
The footage being licensed is the footage coming out of passion projects from filmmakers, and it's because it is the most authentic, cinematic, and it's all the stuff that all the filmmakers have put all their blood, sweat, and tears into, and it shows. Like, you look at a clip and you're like, oh my gosh, that's emotive, I want to use that. The guys that just go out there and shoot a day for stock, like, that's not who we are. I mean, that's not what we're about. Like, we're about helping filmmakers fund passion projects and seeing the footage from these passion projects actually get used in commercial ways.
Thanks again to Film Supply for sponsoring this season of Good. With Film Supply, you can license stock footage from world-class filmmakers like El Ginter, Diego Contreras, Maceo Frost, and more.
Plus, if you're short on time, they have free footage research available to help you find exactly what you need. Learn more at filmsupply.com.
With Yargos sort of being like almost anti-character, what's on the other side of the coin, I guess, with something maybe like James White or something, what are those like questions that you're asking, you know, maybe for a production designer that's starting out that wants to know sort of like, I need to come to a director with these questions to sort of spark ideas. What are those questions that you're asking? Something really character-based.
At the beginning, when you first meet with the director, you're already gonna get a sense of where they stand, like with the story and how close they are, and what it means to them. So in your first meeting, like James White was a very personal story to Josh. You know, it was his story with his mother. You know, the main character was very much based on him. So you know immediately you're kind of looking at the character. So you're like, okay, well, I got all this information right here. So it's like, you know, that became easy. But it becomes a lot of understanding what certain sets mean to the director. And the questions I always like to sit down and it's just ask about, you know, if I'm just trying to think back to, like, you know, Itani is an interesting one to look at because it's also based on a historical sort of figure, you know, and it's like, how far are we trying to make this real, and how far are we leaning towards cinema, you know, and like, and where does it matter? Because some are Mr. Rogers, like, you know, where are we? And with Craig, it's like something he would always sort of remind me is like, we're making a movie, Jade. We're making a movie, and it's okay. It doesn't, you know, it's like, because I was like, I really wanted to get the details right.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, but then it's like they're lighting the skating and trying to make it not flat like they did in real life. And it's like, yeah, we're making a movie. We want to make this look good. And it's like, that's like, you know, whereas for Mr. Rogers, it's like, we really wanted it to be exactly right. So it's just knowing for each director where they stand in regards to like the details and what it means. And so I just like to ask, I just like to go through the whole script and talk about, and honestly, it happens, if I get hired for the job, usually it's because it happened in the meeting where we're talking about the story and what it means and how we feel about it and how we feel about the world. And I do think, I really believe that the reason I've gotten where I am today is because I put a mean lookbook together, and I can spend 30 hours putting a lookbook together for a movie I don't even do. Like, I don't get the job, or I say I don't want the job, even I'll still do the lookbook because like I might want to work with that director, or I wasn't really sure. And then, you know, it's like, you never know what's going to happen. But usually if I try to extract the images, put them down so the director can see them. And in our first meeting, when I show them that, if they're connecting to it, the trust is already building, right? You want your director to trust. So it's so much about being able to put visuals in front of them so they can see it. Cause you can talk and talk and talk about who the characters are, but you really want to be able to like show them something, like, so inspirational images, just photographs, paintings. I just spend so much time online until I find an image. Like I will just keep looking for one image until I find the thing that goes ding, that's it.
Yeah. What are you kind of like digging into, and what are kind of, I mean, do you just have a library of books?
You want me to give away my secrets? What do you
You can speak generally.
I'm gonna just I'll give a shout out to Film Grab, because I think what he's doing is great. I want him to be able to keep making his website, because it's such a good website. If people don't know it, it's just filmgrab.com. I think there's a dash in there somewhere, but he's going in and just, do you guys know it, Film Grab?
Yeah.
I mean, so I remember using Film Grab when nobody knew what that was, and I was like, it's my little secret, and now everybody knows. And sometimes I'll just email him and be like, I noticed you don't have Itania up, but just kidding. When are you going to put that one up? No. If there's movies, like, I've been waiting for him to put up, be like, you're going to put this movie up anytime soon. Not of mine, but others. But I spend a lot of time on archives, and I do have a ridiculous catalog. I have like a website that I use. I have my own smug mug of just my references, because the problem is, you get a book, then it goes in a box somewhere, it goes in a shelf, and then you're on a job somewhere else and you can't get to your book. So I have I've scanned every single one of my photo books.
No.
Yes. And I have them all on my site so that I can.
Are you like tagging them and stuff? And
I have them tagged in different sections. I've got photo books by photographers. I've got like my design books, my architecture books. And then I have a full section that's like in alphabetical order. That's like barn, garage.
Is that something?
And then I have a folder that's period. That'll be like, what I try to do is, as I'm pulling, what happens is when you're looking for images, you go down a rabbit hole and suddenly you're looking at images that have nothing to do with the movie you're on, but you're like, these are so good. So you pull them and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to need these for. But if you don't put them somewhere where you'll know how to find them, they'll just get lost. And then later on you'll get a script and you're like, fuck, where did those go? So now I've just gone to be really good about like taking the photos. Like I was just at a crazy bookstore this weekend, and obviously you can't buy every book. So sometimes I'll be in the bookstores like photographing the books. Or I just photograph the cover and then I go and then I'll try to like remember it so that I'm like, if I'm ever doing a movie, like I photographed once like this week and I was like, New Orleans houses. I was like, ooh, it was like houses. It was a 1970s book that was like houses of the Midwest. And I was like, I don't need this right now, but I might one day. So I'll photograph it, I'll catalog it, and then I know where it is. So it takes, and then I've got all like my wallpapers every time I do a movie. Now they're like cataloged so I can find every research. So you just have to be good about that. And I think that is, it takes a long time to do lookbooks. So the more references I can find and the more movies I do. And also every time I do a lookbook for a movie I don't actually get, I try to keep all those photos get organized also in its own. Yeah. I do a website for every movie, and it's like, I can be like, ooh, it sort of makes me think of that lawyer's office. Let me go see what those research photos. I just go find it. So it's like you have to have I have like, a million photos, probably not kidding at this point, sort of catalog.
In a different way, I'm writing like treatments for music videos and commercials all the time and pulling a lot of my own references. So I'm very interested in your process.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I have so many just different art sites I like to go to. And I've definitely, since I've been doing more period stuff, rely so much on painters, and now I use them for contemporary things too. I want to
talk about that a little bit. Did that feel like kind of going into more period stuff, did that feel like a sizable kind of transition for you, like mentally, or does it kind of
think I was yearning. I mean, I hate doing contemporary stuff. I really do.
Really?
Unless I'm doing really stylized, like Tanya, is people might, it's contemporary, it's period. I wasn't allowed to submit it to the period section, although I feel like I should have.
Yeah,
but
interesting.
it was, that's really fun. But
Yeah.
I don't like, when I'm talking about contemporary, it's just like every day, like it just wants to look like normal everyday apartment, someone's upper, someone's loft or someone's like nice middle class house. And like, I don't get any, I'm someone who really loves timelessness and nostalgia. So
Yeah.
I thrive on things looking, I like period stuff. I really do. And then doing Green Knight was so fun because we weren't really being rigid about what period. We're like, we're making it up. It's a fantasy movie. Whatever we want. And that was just fun because I got to really think about what kind of medieval movie I was interested in, sort of, wanted to see and David wanted to see. And it was just such a fun, that's what I love about David. He's always like, fuck this, I'm going to do something totally weird now. Like do this weird medieval movie. Like, I
love it.
He's just never.
Do you feel like, is there any part of you that kind of like gets off on like the research of like, everything being exactly, like someone like Robert Eggers or something who, he's like obsessive about every like doorknob being correct. Like, is that something that excites you, or is that like completely boring to you? That level of detail.
Oh God.
Not detail, but like accuracy, I guess.
When my, art directors or set decorators come in and want to talk about doorknobs, I'm just like, I think you've got this one. You've got this. I trust you. No, like I really like details, but those kind of things, I'm just like, I want them to be right. And I if I saw a new doorknob, I'd be annoyed, but I hope I don't want to spend too much time myself looking at doorknobs. No, yeah. On a period movie, like right now the Peter Pan we're doing is set in not in present day. It's like 1911, London. And it's been really fun to do the Darling House and to really think about what it would have looked like and trying to get that right and really building the details. And I do really get excited about old wallpaper. Get excited about old windows. Don't want glass, and glass needs to look old. All that stuff, and the doorknobs and the wood, everything. I do get upset like that. But when it comes to like me wanting to spend time looking at doorknobs, no. Or just like hardware, when it's like, here are the brackets, I'm like, because I have so much other stuff my brain can't contain. Like I'm just like lamp fixtures. Yes, I get very excited about lamps and fabric. And, I spend a lot of time thinking about the floor and making sure and doing that research, but I try to just but I do, it's like, it's so much work. It's so much work. So many sleepless nights like spent looking at the doorknobs. Yeah. But I do love period movies, and I wish I could just do period movies all the time.
Why? Yeah, why?
Because ever since I was a kid, I loved antiques, and I love, like, my favorite thing is to go to an estate sale or an antique store and like find estate sales, let's be honest, like someone else's house, and like you're just in their house. It's so cool. Opening their closets and like taking out their clothes. You're just like, that's what I love about making sets. It's like I'm recreating this world that someone and it belongs to somebody, so I love picking up something old and feeling like different characters. It's like I used to want to be an archaeologist when I was a kid. That's what I want to be, Indiana Jones. Which is not really an archaeologist. Exactly. And what I find is that this job, in some ways, I think of it like being an archaeologist. Like you're digging away, and when you're in like an antique store, or you're like online on eBay and you're looking at research. I'm constantly just digging away, trying to do the research and figure out like, who are these people when I'm doing that kind of non-Yorgos movie. I'm like, it feels, when I'm doing a period movie, it's just more exciting for me, because contemporary films, there's certain contemporary films that are great if they have like an interesting story and it's like they're living in the South in the middle of nowhere, something like that. There's something interesting there. But I think I try to choose movies that, like, even Marriage Story, that one's a little bit more like contemporary sort of, it's like a stretch. It's not as exciting. And there's so many locations.
Exactly what I was going to bring up is
it's like, so many locations. I'm like, no, why so many? So many. But it's
tell me about the decision making of, like, I'm thinking about Adam Driver's like kind of
empty apartment.
Empty apartment. Yeah.
Well, that's where I got to. I wanted to, that's where I really wanted to do something that was just like the most aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people think movies always have to be beautiful and sets have to be beautiful. I think that there's beauty in the benign and sort of banal of like that apartment is so much of like where he is in his life at the time. And with Noah, it's like he was all about it, you know, just like, yeah, let's just find something really empty.
I honestly
and boring.
can't think about that apartment and not think about the scene where he cuts himself. That
so
might be
good.
the funniest scene of the entire year.
It's so good. It's so good. She's so good, that woman who plays the social worker. No, it's so good. But it is weird when you're just looking for like an ugly, you know, we looked at so many ugly apartments, you just can't even imagine. That's where
Sounds
we
like
ended
a fun scout.
Yeah. Scouting LA. Oh my God, please never. No, but that's a different process. But it's like that story is such a good script that it's like you want to serve the script and you want to bring it to life. But so it's like if this, it's all, I don't know. The process of figuring what movies to do always has to do with like who the director is and what the script is always. It's like who do you want to work with, and
it definitely seems, you know, looking at the work that you've done, and I don't know, do production designers get kind of like typecast as doing like a certain thing? Because seems like
absolutely. I have I have friends. I have a friend. I'm not going to say his name, that I love dearly. He's a production designer. I love to make so much fun because I'm like, oh, another rom-com you're doing? This is your thing now, right? And he's like, fuck you. I was like, are you sure this is for you? Does it seem like it's enough like, you know, rom-comish going on? No, you do get typecast, and I think even me, because but luckily because David is always doing such different stuff, I'm able to kind of step out of it. But often it's like real gritty, like Jade. She's good for that. You know, like I want to do like big builds and I want to do like sci-fi, you know? But so the collaborators I work with time and time again, I've gone into sort of switch gears with them because they don't like to do the same thing. You know, Ty is always doing something different. Like, well, Dave is always doing something different. So it's nice to be able to change. You know, I think Green Knight is so different than anything I've done, for sure.
That's exciting. Is that I'm looking here. I have your IMDb pulled up here. Is that the most like full on? Maybe I'm totally wrong. Like period piece that you've done? Yeah,
definitely. And that, you know, Pete's Dragon had a lot of builds, but I think Green Knight had more, and we had way less money, so it was very. But the crews in Ireland were amazing, and now of course Peter Pan is the biggest by far. Biggest build that I've, you know. Sometimes it's just like you're looking around at the stages and like the stuff you're talking about building, you're like, but I have such a good crew that I'm just like, all right, we're gonna do this. They're like, these guys are like pros. I'm like, all right, this is gonna work. But it's so stressful. It's so stressful.
Is Andrew shooting this one?
No.
Andrew Colum? He's not. No.
Mm-hmm. Boyan, who shot Pete's Dragon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
We talked about kind of your transition from, you know, would you say House of the Devil was like your first, like full on?
Yeah.
You know, I'm curious about the transition from being, you know, like, obviously you still have people that, you know, you're reporting to, but having a team that you're leading, what was that transition like for you to have like a full team of people that you're kind of like,
Well, I did House of the Devil, but then when I did the Sacrament with I'm like, is that what it's called, with Ty? It was probably the first time I was really building like something significant, because we built that the world, like it was just a field when we got there. And I remember at that time I'd been so used to being in control and in charge of everything, that I wasn't used to an art director. Like, I was like, what are you're or just sort of taking on the role of doing things I was doing, that I was almost like annoyed and frustrated. And I remember going and, you know, calling that art director later on after I'd been doing more movies and being like, man, I'm so sorry. So sorry that I was difficult and kind of just didn't know. Like I had such a hard time relinquishing control. So that was sort of the first time that was really happening, where I had to kind of just like, where they would be having the conversations with the line producer about money and like doing the budget. And I was so used to doing that. And like, now I'm just so grateful. Now I'm just like, you got this? Cool.
Great.
You're talking to them. Okay. Like, so that it's just something you just learn because people come up through the studio system. They understand the hierarchy of who does what, but in the indie world, you're like making it up a little bit. You kind of know, and you start to learn and you figure it out. And every movie you do, that's a little bit more. You have a little bit more crew. Because I decorated on Cabin Fever 2, I always credit that lead man for kind of teaching me how to be a decorator. Because like, I don't know, I really didn't know what I was doing on a bigger movie, and he really showed me. So that when I went to do other smaller movies, I was like, this is how it's done, guys. So you just pick up. I was just picking up a little bit on every movie until I got to like Pete's Dragon. And when I got to Pete's Dragon, I was so lucky to do that movie in New Zealand because I just had the nicest and like top notch, like Lord of the Rings crew. Really, I almost didn't do that movie because I was like, that's never going to happen. David told me he was doing it. I read the script. He asked me if I wanted to try and get the job. And I was like, I was trying to write and direct something. I was like, I'm just going to work on my own thing. Don't worry about it. And then a friend of mine, Michael Simmons, who's a DP, emailed me or texted me. He was like, are you doing that Pete's Dragon with David? I was like, nah, I think I'm going to like do this summer. And he wrote back, are you fucking crazy? And then I was like, oh my God, I'm making a mistake. And I literally text David, like, have you hired someone? He's like, not yet, but we're about to. And then like that, I was like, okay, wait. And I had a meeting and, the producers really liked me and they liked my lookbook the best. And then they gave me the job, which was just like, I couldn't freaking believe it. I was on in a Valley of Violence at the time. And then we, luckily Ty and David are good friends too. And I had to leave during the shoot for 2 weeks to scout New Zealand, but because they're good friends, Ty is like, it's cool.
That's amazing.
And he knew my decorator at that point too, because we'd done a few movies and he was like, Adam's got it. So I got to leave. And then when I got there, I was so scared because I was like, what am I doing? Total imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't deserve to be here. I have no idea. They're all going to know. They're going to know I don't know what I'm doing. And it was fine. Like, I remember when I had the interview, I was very honest about my ability, like what I knew how to do and didn't know how to do. But I was like, I trust that I'm going to have a good team, and we're going to just figure it out, work it out. And I'm not afraid. And I always tell the people I hire, even on this movie, I was like, listen, we're going to be doing some stuff that I don't quite know yet how to do this. But like, I'm not afraid to say like, I don't know how to do this. How do you tell me? Like, I think you have to know as you're coming up in the world and you're doing bigger stuff to not have the ego to pretend, and being like, yeah. I'm just like, well, how are we doing? Explain to me how we do this. And what I learned, because I was so open to that on Pete's Dragon, I learned so much about VFX and just like understanding limitations but also needing to know when to push and say like, we can make it bigger. That's the thing. You can feel like when you're young, for me as a younger woman also, especially on that job, I was like 34, to just be like, okay, I guess. And then like having to find the voice to be like, no, like, I'm not good at being like, I think sometimes my teams are so used to working with people who are like so demanding. And I'm more like, what's the easiest way? That way? Okay. I'm like, is that too hard? Oh, that's expensive. Okay. So it's like learning, because I come from a low budget word, to be learning to be like, I'm sorry, we already spent like 5,000 on that, but I don't like it. Like finding those sea legs for me, like finding those designer legs of saying like, I know you painted this room, but you have to paint it again. That was like a transition for me. And I remember losing 2 nights of sleep about the kitchen they had painted. They just paint the cabinetry separate. It wasn't installed. And like I looked at it, I hated it. I was like, oh my God, this is wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. And it took me 2 days to be like, to say like, I like, you know what? And they were like, okay. Cool, repaint it. And I was just like, oh, okay. Just today I went down to the stage and there's a room that had gotten built and I was like, this is small. Did I agree to this drawing? And it's just like, now I'm like, it's too small. Like there's no now I'm just like, now what I've learned through the years is as soon as I don't like something, I'm not going to like it. So it's like, I see a paint, like I'm on Itania, they painted something, they kept trying to convince me, give it a couple days. And I was like, nah, dude, I don't like it now. And I'm not going to like it tomorrow. So like, you keep telling me, but like, you just need to repaint it. Let's just get this over with.
And I think that's got to be helpful for people to hear. Like, that was like a process of a lot of films that you made.
Oh yeah, you
A
have
lot
to
of years.
learn, and it just takes time. It takes time, and sometimes there's things that I didn't get to change because I didn't have money,
Yeah.
and you just got to live with it. On a ghost story, I went and repainted the living room myself one weekend because I hated the color, and then we only had like PAs and interns that paint. So I went to Home Depot, bought some paint. I didn't even tell anybody, and just like went and repainted it because I was just like, no, like there's certain things that you have to change, and this is after I just did Pete's Dragon. So I could still get it. But I used to be someone who I'm still hands-on, but I was shopping, decorating, paint, doing everything. And you have to transition as you become a bigger designer because there's no time for you to do that. I miss it. I spend so much time on my computer now, just like drawing and like sending emails and having meetings. But I do like when we get to the point of dressing, I'm still really hands-on. Like I like to just be like alone on the set. I let the decorator like do the rough, but then I'm like, everybody out. I need to go in and like spend time alone in here because I think I find it too hard when there's too many people who are like waiting on you don't move, let me get that for you. And I'm just like, I can push the chair myself. It's cool.
Yeah.
But it's but it is a learning experience and just figuring out constantly. I hope it always will be. I hope that I will forever be like finding new things that challenge me and then finding that I learned something on the last job. It's going to get really boring if suddenly everything is so easy and I'm just like, this wallpaper, that color, and we're done. I'm going home. That's going to be boring. I want to constantly be like pushing myself and wondering, am I making the right decision? So I think it's just always, but you have to know when to turn that voice off. It can be hard because my assistants were like laughing at me because I would just be like in the room, like surrounded by wallpaper. And every day I'd be like, I need these 5 samples. And the next day I'd be like, I need the 8 more. I swear we're almost done. And it's just like constant, and finally you're like, but then when you're like, this is it. This is the one. Yeah. But it just takes time. And, I like to be sure.
What do you feel like is what is setting your lookbooks apart? You've mentioned it a couple of times in our conversation.
Maybe I just think that. Who knows? Maybe.
It seems like something's working.
No, something's working because I try to I have production designer friends who came up as like my, lead man or decorator. And now they're like doing big movies themselves. And I'm still always like, they'll send me their lookbooks and I'm always like, get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of that, too much here, too much this. Like, I think it's always about just being able to, if you can look through the lookbook, I always put mine in story order and see the film in front of you. And as soon as something jumps out and doesn't feel good, I'm always a believer of less is more. Don't pack a lookbook full of images. Find the images that actually speak to your vision. Yeah. And like you need, sometimes it's just one image for one set that this is like for one moment that's going to speak to what you need. And if you think I'll just put a bunch of images in there, then you're just watering down what's good. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so that's how I always feel. And I think what sets it apart is because like, I don't want to just be like, here's a bunch of ideas. I'm really rigid about being like, here's what I think, rather than just being like, it could be this, it could be that. Cause then it's like, why are you hiring me if I'm just asking you to pick the thing? Like, I'm like, so I really try to I really want it to feel, it's been very thought out, like, what is this this lookbook? I mean, I just try to, I did. Yeah. I'm being recorded, so I don't want to say about this meeting because it's all off the books. But I met with the director this year. I didn't get the job, but it was like 3 meetings, and I think my lookbooks ended up being in total of like 300 pages.
Whoa. Oh my god!
Maybe more. It was like 150 this one, and then the next one was like 200. It's like so long, but the project was this project there were so many sets, and it was huge. It's like a series, and it was just so big. And it's like a director that I'm like such a like nerd about, but I didn't get the job, but I was just like kind of great in a way. I was like, thank God, because I don't know, it was like a 3-year commitment, like one of those things. My God. But I spent like a week and a half doing just every day, like, like just trying to find
where's your source coming from?
We talked about that a little bit.
We already did.
Dude,
my internet, guys.
No, it's no worries. I mean, I just have a huge database, but I spend so much time looking at photographers like over and over and over. And what I even do, I didn't mention last time, is not only do I have photo books and like every different by location, but I also have it by photographers. I have like every time I find a photographer I like, I don't stop at the things that are working. I go through their whole. I look up their name, and I pull every fucking image that I've seen of theirs, and I dump it in a folder with their name on it. So
Could
now,
you give us your Mount Rushmore?
What of where I find?
Of photographers.
Oh my God, there's just too many. Well, I have to pull. Let me pull up my my site. I had to eventually I had to put a code on mine because I started to get too many people were using it. There was a movie I didn't end up getting to do, but the art director and the set decorator stayed on, and then they told me that the new designer didn't do a lookbook and they were just using mine. I was like, gotta change the password of my fucking shit. No fucking way are you coming in and looking at my stuff.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
I love Todd Hito. I love Ned Golden. When I'm looking for, hold on, I'm going into my folder called references. Look at my favorites. There's so many.
Todd Hito's amazing.
I do love Todd Hito for just feeling. Let me see some of my favorites. I love Mark Cohen for color in 70s. Gregory Crutzen, obviously, if you're doing something a little bit more if you're going for beautiful black and whites, Roy DeCaro.
It feels very Ghost Story.
Yeah.
Crutzen always feels very Ghost Story.
And Bruce Davidson, if I'm doing looking for that stuff. But I also really love going. Obviously Eggleston. Mitch Epstein is a favorite I like when I'm looking for real, just kind of suburbia world. I mentioned N. Golden. Fred Herzog is great. Todd Hito's great. I like Ernst Haas, who's really interesting. I like. Philip Lorca de Corsa, obviously, for some. Saul Leiter. Saul Leiter.
Yeah.
Saul Leiter, Helen Levitt and Mary Ellen Mark. Those are also ones I always go to. Joel Meyerowitz is great. He's got so much great stuff. Brad Moore and Martin Parr. Martin Parr, I love. Those are my always go-tos. Robert Polidori. For anything textured. If you don't know Robert Polidori, you're going to look at his stuff.
I love that you have all this categorized in your mind.
I'm really bad. I'm really bad with names, actually. So I have to some of them I can always remember, but then I'll just forget. So that's why I have to do this, because otherwise I can't remember. Joel Sternfeld is another amazing photographer. That's just so much great stuff.
Let me ask you one more question about lookbook stuff, and then we've got just a couple quick kind of lightning round questions.
And if you're really in my inner circle, you get access to the art, to the full chick.
You could probably make a little salary off of that. Just offer it up. $20 a month.
Yeah.
I'm curious, kind of in the process of you putting a lookbook together, you are processing the script and kind of getting your head. So it feels like, the collecting of photographs is that feels like that happens later in the process, I would imagine. And you're really kind of you talked about you're making pretty decisive decisions on what your vision is for the production design. So what does that process look like for you? And I know it varies from film to film, but how long does something like that take?
Starts really, once I get a meeting for a job, that's where it starts. And I read the script, and then I'll immediately think, oh, I'm going to look up this photographer. I'm going to look at this artist, or I'm going to just start looking. If it's historical, I'll start looking at, historic archives. And I basically just start folders immediately. First I have the whole, I call it the dump, where I just dump everything, and then I start to categorize it very quickly in the sets that I know I'm looking for very quickly, and I start pulling and dumping all those photos there. And then at first I just do a drop. I'm just dumping, not trying to spend too much time.
Anything that feels right.
If it feels right, I dump, and then I go back and I look at it.
Yeah.
This is all and then I just start going delete, pulling them out, deleting and putting them where they should go. And I'm like, this is here, this goes here. And then I start putting them in into whatever I'm using, PowerPoint, or if I'm using InDesign, I start dropping them in, and that's the thing that takes time. And then I start trying to feel what works, and then I start not that one, and then I just start. That's when I start to carve it out.
It's all subtractive.
Yeah, in the design, and when I'm doing my PowerPoint, PDF, or in whatever it is I'm using, that's where it starts. I start to figure out. Then it's always still to this day, I'm black background, white background. I go so back and forth. This way, vertical, this way.
Do you feel yourself ever getting stuck kind of like conceptually trying to figure out like this approach versus that approach? What am I going to?
I think I try to keep it really simple. I think I try not to do too much like crazy, like I'm just like black background and then I'm just trying to do like, you know, deciding. I try not to overwhelm the page. So I'm always like, there's certain things.
Not as much the design of the lookbook, but more
the design of the movie.
Yeah. Like your ideas are, I mean, I would imagine some scripts, things come quicker than other scripts where you're like,
there's certain things I just keep going. Like there's certain things that will take so long, but I don't want to put a lookbook in if I don't have something. So that's what I'm just like hours and hours and, you know, just kind of trying to keep until I find it. I just like, there's always somewhere you haven't looked. So you just like, you start to get better at figuring it out as you're doing this. You're like, where? And then sometimes maybe you don't exactly find it, but you're able to sort of piece it together with just some images to get the feel of it. And then I don't usually do concept art for lookbooks. You know, sometimes I'll try if it's something I really, really, really want to do. I'll kind of get a little concept piece in there, but I usually try to wait. Oh, hey, Jim.
I just want to say it's nice to hear you having so much fun.
I'm podcasting. This is the producer of Peter, Pan and Wendy. I'm on a podcast. We're recording right now. It's cool. I know we share a wall, so I can hear Jim laughing and joking over there. All right. Bye.
Sorry, Jim.
Don't forget, this season of Good is sponsored by MusicBed. Go to musicbed.com to check out over 700 indie artists and composers with record label quality music.
And remember, as a Good listener, you can get 1 month free off any subscription type. Just head to musicbed.com/good and use coupon code GOOD at checkout.
This season of Good is also sponsored by Film Supply, licensed stock footage from world-class filmmakers.
And do not forget to take advantage of features like shoots and scenes, craft an entire narrative with extensive collections featuring the same talent and settings. Plus, if you're short on time, they have free footage research available to help you find exactly what you need. Learn more at filmsupply.com.